All right, very good morning to our respectable speaker and distinguished guests. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Joyce from Central for Corporate and Community Development, UTAR. On behalf of the organizing committee, I would like to extend a very warm welcome to all of you. Today, we are presenting Gen Z Navigating Earlier Careers by Mr. Aaron Saw from ACCA Maritime Southeast Asia. Let me introduce the background of him. Mr. Aaron is the head of policy and technical ACCA Maritime Southeast Asia. He promotes the sharing of ACCA professional insights in Malaysia, and he believes in sharing knowledge widely and is now exploring areas relevant to accountancy profession to develop and share cutting-edge insights for the continued development of the profession. He designed a framework for SMP 100, a community for SMPs in Malaysia that supports the professional development of each other. His areas of interest include development of SMPs, digital technology, improving audit quality, improving corporate reporting, business resilience and sustainability, and analyzing business outlook and government policies impacting the accountancy profession. Prior to joining ACCA, Mr. Aaron had a decade of experience providing assurance services to multinationals and small and medium-sized enterprises in Malaysia, operating in a wide range of industries, as well as providing technical consultancy, conducting trainings, and developing training programs. Last but not least, Mr. Aaron is also an alumni of University Tengku Abdul Rahman. All right, if you have any questions, please type it in the chat box in your Zoom control panel. I will bring them up during the Q&A sessions at the end of this webinar. For all participants, please do not forget to sign in and sign out of your attendance, which the link has already posted in the same chat box in the Zoom control panel. So now I will like to invite Mr. Peter from ACCA as well to give a few words before we invite Mr. Aaron to start off the session.
Thank you, Joyce. Good morning, everyone. First of all, I would like to extend my thanks to Joyce and all the entire Utah team to have these sessions for today. And of course, to all the students, thanks so much for being with us today. And just to let you guys know that this is another part of our support towards the students in terms of your ACCA study, your career progressions, and many more to come. So it's kind of a series for this that we actually plan to all the to the students of Utah. Now, students, we are lucky today to have Aaron. Not only he is our ACCA member, he also a Utah alumni that's going to speak to you all today. So please take this opportunity to listen and to of course you are actually more than welcome to ask him to clarify anything that you would like to to ask Aaron. So with that, I'm not going to take much time for Aaron. Let's pass this over to Aaron. Aaron, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joyce and Peter, for the introduction. Hello, everyone, and good morning. Welcome to this session on Gen Z Navigating Early Careers. I was busy putting some text in the chat box just to say hello to everyone. And before I proceed, before I go on further, I just want to check that you can hear me loud and clear. Now, if you can hear me, it's clear. Give me an indication on the chat box. Say yes, why, 1, 2. I just want to know that people are hearing me. You can hear me clearly. Thank you, Stephanie. Yeah. All right. So what I didn't want to end up is to talk to myself in front of a screen, and it would just be weird that I am talking to myself or I'm talking to a screen. Great. Thank you. Thank you, Ong Oivun. So a bit of introduction about myself. I'm Aaron Saw from ACCA, and I'm really delighted to be spending some time with you today to talk about the youngest generation entering the workforce. Now, I believe most of the audience today, so most of you who dial in, have not joined the workforce or will be about to join the workforce. So I should be speaking with a majority of Gen Z. I understand this session is also being broadcasted to FB Live. So we may have more people than the 19 that I am looking at in the attendance list here or attendee list. So let me know if you are a Gen Z, or if you think that you are a Gen Z. So put some comments on the chat box to say yes, you are Gen Z, or why, or one, whichever. I know this is being used in class now to indicate your participation. Now, despite my youthful look, I am not Gen Z. I am from the previous generation, Gen Y, and what I am is also I'm an alumni of Utah. Long before I obtained ACCA, and I graduated from Utah with a Bachelor of Commerce in Accounting before the Kampa campus was completed. So you can guess that was a long time ago. I'm really happy to be speaking with my juniors in my alma mater. So what we will do in this session is I will be sharing with you an overview about how Gen Z sees themselves. So we will tap into the psyche of Gen Z to understand more about the character, their aspirations, and the fears that they face. We'll also look at some drivers of change that's impacting organizations and the work of professional accountants. So most of you joining in will probably be pursuing an accounting related or finance related program. So I'm sure you're interested to know what's in store in the profession. And lastly, we will discuss a few career navigation guides, and hopefully that will help you with your early career years. So feel free to post questions. So what I will try to do today is to make this session into a conversation, and we can do discussions, we can do Q&A. So post your questions in the chat box, and I will answer them to the best of my knowledge. Okay. Now let's move on to the first part of this segment, understanding Gen Z. So I realized absolutely no one answered my question on whether they are Gen Z or they think they are Gen Z. Perhaps that's an indication that you're not sure or not clear who are categorized as Generation Z. So looking at this slide here, you will see 5 generations. In fact, in some organizations in the workforce today, you will be working with 5 generations. The older one could be in their mid-70s now, is what is called the silent generation, while the youngest one joining the workforce are those born between 1995 to 2010. Of course, those closer to 2010 would not be working because they have not attained the legal age to work, right? So it's those closer to the late 90s, early 2000s. So this, those people born within this range of years are categorized as Gen Z. Now, also, prior to this session, you may have seen other reports talking about Gen Z with the years could be different. They could start from 94, 96. It's fine. There's no bright line, but this is just the range that we have adopted for this research that ACCS conduct on Generation Z, right? So moving on, the first thing or the first character that we learn about Gen Z from this research that ACCA conducted together with IFAC, the International Federation of Accountants, was that Gen Z are ambitious, and they want to move quickly in their careers. And we associate that with the aspirations, we associate ambition with the aspiration to move quickly upwards, that is to seek promotion. And what we observe is, based on the survey results, and this is from Malaysia, Malaysian Gen Z, about 61% of survey respondents say they would like the next move in their career to be a promotion. I'll let this sink in for a while. So 61%, so 6 out of every 10 people, out of 10 Gen Z says they would like the next move to be a promotion. Meanwhile, 1 in 5, that's 22%, says they are willing to take a sideways move, and the remaining 70% have no preference what the next move will be. And Malaysian Gen Z are not that different in terms of their ambition, and not that different from the global counterparts. So as you can see, the numbers in orange color or tangerine, right, representing the global average. So you can see that Malaysian Gen Z are actually not too different from from their global counterparts. So likely, if you meet Gen Z from another country, the aspiration could be very similar. Now, where do Gen Z want to get wants to obtain the next move in their career? 54% are not shy to walk away or to join another organization. So if they cannot obtain the desired next move within the same organization, half of them are willing to join another organization to get the next move. That could be a promotion. And 19%, also about 1 in 5 Gen Z says they're willing to wait for an internal opportunity. And 27% says they're not sure. Now, why is this important? Why is knowing this important? Now, for people managers, that is people who have to manage a team of people, they will have to anticipate movement in the team. Now, movement means people can go up, can go sideways, or they go out of the organization, and even people joining the team because they need to replace whoever who has moved either upwards or outwards, right? And for Gen Z, it's also important for you to know, because not only you will move, your peers, your team members will similarly want to move. So there will be a lot of changes in the teams that you work in. And how fast do Gen Z want to move? Because earlier on I said they're ambitious and they want to move quickly. How quickly? So this table helps you to visualize, right? And again, we see that Malaysian Gen Z are not too different from their global counterparts. And to help you visualize it, to see clearly, you can look at the last column on this table, right? So this diagram shows you that in every 10 people, or in every 10 Gen Z who are hired, 8 of them would not remain in a role for more than 3 years. So you will see movement in less than a year, between 1 year to 2 years. In summary, if you just step back, take a big picture look, so within 3 years, you expect to deal with a lot of movement. But don't be too happy if you think, okay, I still have 2 of them who will stay longer. Well, one of them is just unsure of, should I go, should I stay, or should I go? Now, besides ambitious, right? We've already know that, so we've understand that. Besides ambitious, Gen Z also values flexibility and work-life balance. It's probably as much as their ambition to progress quickly in their careers. So based on a survey results from Malaysian Gen Z, right? So 89% of them told us that they value flexibility and work-life balance. And you may wonder, how do you progress quickly in your careers and at the same time achieve flexibility and work-life balance? It's a question. Yes, it is still a question that many organizations are trying to find out. So one thing, one possibility that I learned while talking to Gen Z is the views on careers are different. Now, flexibility means they have the flexibility to work, or rather the work arrangement is flexible. It means the start time, the end time are not fixed. It means they're able to work in different locations, not necessarily being anchored or being stuck in the office or single location. And work-life balance is really important for them. Now, having said that, right, Gen Z also say they are willing to work hard as the generations before them in order to progress quickly in our careers. And they also value high pay and a prestigious title. Except that they will work hard and they want high pay. But what is more important is the job has to be meaningful. The job has to have a purpose and has to be meaningful. Therefore, we cannot look at this result in isolation. We cannot look at any of these bars in isolation. I would suggest we take a big picture look and analyze this collectively. And when you take a big picture look, you get a better understanding that, okay, so Gen Z wants to progress quickly, and if the job is meaningful and provide them with a sense of purpose, then they are willing to work hard. They're willing to work very hard, and they're willing to even prioritize a job over a higher pay. So is that true? Is that true for Gen Z listening in today? So I believe this may not represent everyone. So it's okay, it's perfectly all right if you say, no, this is not me. I don't think like that, right? But there is some similarity that we can observe based on the survey that we've done. And this was done actually globally. What I'm showing you is Malaysia data, but actually comparing to the global data, they are not that different after all. Now, what's really interesting is the last bar here that says we are entrepreneurial, and it's only 61%. When I saw the result, I thought, could it be related to the pandemic? Now, one thing is the survey was conducted in late December to January 2021. So everyone, I mean, not just Malaysia, many countries are in the thick of the pandemic. We are going through lockdown. So perhaps Gen Z were less entrepreneurial or feel less entrepreneurial at the time. And when I compare this to a survey that ACCA did in 2017, serious back 2017, the result was much closer to 80%. When the survey was done among people who are between the age of 16 to 36, so they are considered young at that time, the result is closer to 80%. So, yep, perhaps the pandemic has an impact. Now, talking about the pandemic, I think it is a good segue into the next segment, which is we want to understand what are Gen Z concerned about in the future. Now, to Gen Z, to many Gen Z, this picture probably illustrates what the emotion that they're going through. Now, if you look at this picture, you see a person standing there, staring at a mega waterfall, a huge waterfall. Now, this is a force that is there. It is there. You can feel it. You can feel its power, and yet it's changing all the time. It's not fixed. right? It's changing all the time. It's going through a lot of permutation, but you can feel that, you can feel the force. So perhaps what does the future hold feels very much like this. So when we ask Gen Z, what are their top concerns for the future? This is the result that we can see. And again, I would like to start from a big picture. When I look at this result, the big picture tells me there are two themes coming out from their concerns. One is it's very personal. The concern is personal. It relates to them personally. Why I say that? Because if you look at it, the two themes are their livelihood. It's related to the livelihood and their personal well-being. So let's unpack that a little. Looking at this chart, the most or the highest concern that Gen Z has deals with a lack of job opportunities or job security. Again, perhaps this has something to do with the lockdown, the pandemic, and all the associated consequences. So the lack of job opportunities have impact on Gen Z's livelihood. Similarly, the global economy or recession and the local economy and recession. So you see these bars are quite high, right? These are the top three. And what else? Income inequality also has an impact on Gen Z's livelihood. So looking at this from a big picture, it tells us they are worried about the ability to generate a comfortable livelihood. And also the personal well-being, their personal well-being and mental health. Perhaps this is during a time when Gen Z observe the peers, the family members, the friends, they're all kind of everyone's going through a lockdown and working during a lockdown period. They probably experience the stress or they also witness the stress, and therefore the awareness is heightened. They face it probably turned up a notch, so they have higher awareness around personal well-being, and they feel it's really important, something that is really important to them, and mental health is something really important, right? Now, another point that I want to highlight is sustainability. We may have the preconception that Gen Z cares a lot about sustainability. Now, I think so. Based on Gen Z I spoke to, I think so. But why is the results here so low? In fact, this is less than 25%. And looking at the global results, no country has breached 50% in terms of responses. So it tells us that yes, while sustainability is important to Gen Z, it is something that's external. It's external to them. It is further away compared to their livelihood, which is immediate. So that helps. I hope that helps us to understand Gen Z psyche, what is the fears and the concerns that they face. Now, moving on, we're still trying to unpack, trying to understand Gen Z. Is the other character that we learn about Gen Z. They are comfortable with technology. Now, this should not come as surprising, in fact, because looking at the timeline here and the technology on this chart, Gen Z actually grew up with a lot of technology at their fingertips. They're able to access information to voice command, to Siri, to Alexa, if you have Alexa, to Google Assistant, right? Or Microsoft Cortana. So they are used to getting information quickly, doing transactions virtually. They grew up with mobile technology, with computers, the internet, e-commerce, with e-wallets. Hey, probably Gen Z listening in today have not tried queuing at the bank waiting for the teller. Has anyone tried that? So that's probably another reason why Gen Z seems to be impatient, because they are used to getting information quickly, fulfilling the needs rather quickly with this technology around. It's also a lot of smart technology that I think are giving Gen Z a lot of opportunities. So now, if you look at this chart and you begin to wonder, hey, Aaron, why Lazada is not here, Shopee is not here, what Grab is not here? Well, we can't fit all technology into this diagram. It's a global report, so I think they just fit a few big ones. Hope that satisfy your curiosity. Now, still on the theme of technology, right? We've said Gen Z are very comfortable with technology. We also asked their opinions about whether technology will enable finance professionals to focus on high value added activity, and a very high proportion of them seems to think so, right? So they're comfortable with technology, they can pick up technology fast, they also understand the benefits or the advantage that technology can introduce to the accountancy profession. However, on the other hand, Gen Z are also worried that technology will replace many entry-level roles in the profession. And these are typically roles that Gen Z will begin their career with. And also, even Gen Z who has begun their career, who has joined the workforce, are worried about the impact technology will have on the job opportunities in the future. So this diagram really shows us the double-edged sword. So while technology brings us advantage, but there's also some cause for concern. We also found that most Gen Z, or rather 69% of them, are not in favor of working mostly from home. And I have to stress mostly. It's not to say Gen Z does not like working from home. It's just that they do not want to work mostly from home. So take a bigger picture, we can understand flexibility in the minds of Gen Z is not working mostly from home. Working remotely, yes, but not spending all the time at home. Why is that the case? This picture again probably tells us a little bit about the situation. Now imagine doing your work, imagine working 8 hours or more in this situation. The infrastructure is just not suitable, it's not compatible for work to be done in a productive manner. So unlike older workforce who has perhaps built their own infrastructure or has acquired their work desk at home, so because of the shared living spaces with siblings, with housemates, it may not have a conducive environment, and therefore working mostly from home is not favored. So now we've gone through some characteristics, the aspirations, and also concerns that Gen Z has. Let's look at what's changing careers in the accountancy. So now we look at the environment. We've understood about the people. Now we look at the environment. We take a step back. What's changing careers in accountancy? And I'm very tempted to say everything. But then you ask me, what's the context if I say everything is changing? All right. Well, this is the product of about 2 years of research by ACCA, and we group these changes into 5 categories. And they include the economy, the environment, society, technological changes, and also the workforce itself is changing. Now, I won't be able to go through every single observation here. I can briefly explain a few, but if there are interests to go through these drivers of change, let us know, let Peter know. We can organize a separate session to go through them, right? Or at the end of today's presentation, you will also see a link to the report that you can read the details of what are these drivers of change all about. So beginning with the economy. If you've been reading news or the ads, you can say, Aaron, I already know the economy is changing. The economy is, well, let's just say going through a tough time. Okay, that is true. Now we'll take a deeper dive into what exactly is changing in the economy. The first thing I would like to point out is the global productivity. Global productivity for some sectors are rising. In fact, they may have risen a lot, but emerging markets face a very challenging decade, and that's caused by the pandemic. During the movement restrictions and the lockdown, a lot of sectors have had to close. So whatever growth that they have built in the past have been wiped off, been eliminated, and you need time to rebuild this growth. Now, rebuilding the growth means they need to regain access to markets. They need to regain access to materials, to the supply chain. And this did not happen in a consistent and equal pace across the globe. Some economies were able to do that faster by getting access to vaccines earlier. Some economies, like us, did not get vaccine as fast. So developing emerging economies will take a longer time to rebuild. And therefore, what we will see is there could be a wider gap between developed economies and emerging and developing economies. So government has a big role to play. It's not just our country. Government in many countries will have to take a bigger role to rebuild the economies. And we also see China and US decoupling. All right. That means when these two mega economies are trying to deleverage on each other, they will build their own, not so much build, we will see some new alliances forming in the global economy. And then for organizations, it's really a strategic decision, which direction to follow. Okay. So moving on, I will talk about environment. And yes, we are going through a climate emergency. I'm sure you know about this. But what does that mean for professional accountants? One important role for professional accountants is to help managing natural capital. Now, in fact, all resources that business use are finite, whether they are financial capital, intellectual, human capital, or natural capital. Do you know more than 50% of the global GDP, that's the global economy, is derived from natural capital? So yes, we rely on the natural environment for our economy. So having said that, it means managing these finite resources becomes very important, and knowing where the risks are emerging, right? Knowing where the risks are emerging and managing them. And therefore, ESG is reframing the risk and reporting agenda, and that is an area that professional accountants are needed. Next on is what's changing in society. And this is also the reason we are gathered here today to talk about Gen Z. The demographic shifts is also changing talent strategies. Now, if Gen Z characters or rather their aspirations and concerns are as such, right? Just as I showed you, that means policies that were designed and put in place a decade or 2 decades ago would not work well, and they need to be redesigned to fit the current generation and to work well or to produce a harmonious team in organization. And up next, I would like to talk a bit about technology. Now, thanks to the use of technology, right? Yeah, Gen Z, you have also produced a lot of data. In fact, everyone who is using the internet, who is using technology, are producing data, and therefore we are generating a lot of data that organizations can harness. Well, in positive ways, of course. So you can use this data to help make better decisions. It can help redesign your product, help deliver what customers need. And the opportunity that I've mentioned earlier is smart technology, right? Gen Z has the tools today. So a lot of these smart technologies were not around in the 80s, they were not around in the 90s, but they're around, they're available now. Yes, they may be developing, but it's available that you can experiment with it. For example, artificial intelligence, machine learning. Okay, so also collaborative technology is changing the way we communicate, we interact. The fact that we can have this conversation in different locations shows that this possibility of us working remotely and yet working together at the same time. So that leads us to the next topic on workforce. So we say that the future of professional work is hybrid. It could be hybrid. Now, hybrid doesn't just mean that working from home or working partly from home or office. It's also how man interacts with machine. I mean, human. Okay, don't get too excited. So it's just human interaction with machines. How do we work with technology? How do we leverage on it to help us work more productively? And innovation and collaboration to drive growth. We cannot work in silos anymore. You may think that I'm collaborating, I'm working together in a team, but it could be that you're just working within the same team, same function. Now, in moving forward, we will see a lot more. Okay, this term is used a lot, agile transformation, agile development. So moving forward, we will see a lot of work being done in an agile manner. And I'll give you an example is that teams will be formed, or they may be called task force or center of excellence. They will be formed to solve a problem. So maybe perhaps a problem is identified, and the task force could be formed comprising members from different functions. They could come from logistics, finance, marketing, or governance to solve a problem, and then this task force could be disbanded and joined into other task forces to solve different problems. So that could be the future that we're looking at. Right. So with all these changes, you may think about what career opportunity is available for me. And I mentioned a couple of times of sustainable organization. Well, essentially, if I just distill sustainable organization, you will see this loop here. It's a cycle of value creation, right? So a cycle of creating value. You create value. This value can be in the form of revenue, talent, profits, cash flow, something that is of value to somebody, to some stakeholders. So you create value, and once the value is created, you want to protect it, right? And when you think about protecting value, what comes to mind are processes, controls. You want to put this in place to protect the value that's created. And then you want to tell your story of how you've created value, how you've protected it and ensure it doesn't diminish, and to ensure that it's not destroyed, right? So you want to report this value in a meaningful and transparent way. By meaningful, I mean in a form that people can understand. When they look at it, when they look at the report, they know what you're trying to say, what you're trying to tell them. The information can be trusted, right? You're not pulling anybody's leg, and this is and they can make decisions based on the information provided. Now, therefore, in this cycle, there are four zones or four career zones of opportunity for professional accountants. I'll talk about the two zones in the value creation, in the creating value and protecting value space. First one is transformation drivers. Now, this is the zone where you will see entrepreneurs, people working with strategies, could be C-suites here, CEOs, CFOs, or team leads. So people whose role is there to create value or unlock value. During the beginning of the pandemic, finance function has played an important role in helping organizations unlock value. And that sometimes translates to unlocking cash flows to help companies survive. And that's how a lot of organizations manage to pull through this 18 months of movement restriction or lockdown. Next is the enterprise analyst. And this is where you will find people transforming data into insights. So some conventional roles like FP&A, you heard of FP&A, business analyst, data analyst, will reside in this zone, and they help organizations understand what's impacting them and also how they are impacting the environment, impacting society by using data. On the other space, in the protect and report value space, there are two career zones. I will first start with the stakeholder reporters before I go to assurance providers, right? So stakeholder reporters are those, they are like storytellers, in fact. They're responsible for communicating what happened, right? So you will see the financial reporting in this space, management accounting, financial accounting in this space. And they are the ones telling the story of the organization. And the last zone I want to talk about is the assurance providers. And these are typically people who are protecting the values and also ensuring the integrity of information reported. So in this space, you will find roles like internal audit, business controls or internal controls, external audit, risk management or governance. You will find them in this space, right? Now, what I've told you, you probably think I've heard this, these are things that I know. But what you've heard before are primarily existing in the financial information space. But moving forward, right, there's another space that's important, that's the non-financial information. So as we're dealing with sustainability, as we're dealing with environment, we also have to take into consideration the non-financial aspect of it, like carbon emissions, energy consumptions, waste generated, materials consumption, poverty, and also quality education. So you see, these are non-financial information that organizations will have to deal with, and using skills that professional accountants have. So this creates new opportunities for accountants. Speaking of opportunities and also careers, I'm sure you need some guidance. Actually, everyone everyone does need some form of guidance, right? And therefore, this is introduced fairly recently. At the end of September, ACCA introduced the Career Navigator. It helps you navigate your career roles by um, showing at each career level that you're at, there are 3 career levels, what are the competencies or capabilities required for the roles that you're interested in, right? So here on this slide, you can see 7 core capabilities, and these are the 7 capabilities that ACCA thinks professional accountants will need to equip themselves with in the coming decade, right? Things like expertise. These are your technical expertise. Things like insights, the ability to use insights to guide your decisions or to influence. Ethics forms the foundation of a profession. Technology can be used in an ethical manner and also the unethical manner. So ethics guides our decision so that the business, so that our operations, we do it in an ethical manner. I'm going to skip sustainability to digital. So the ability to use existing and emerging technology tools for us to work more productively or for us to interact, to communicate. And why is that important? It also comes to or connected to collaboration. Now, because we will need to work together with other people across function, even across geographic locations. So this is where teamwork, you need collab, you need communication and drive. So you can't be successful if every step, if you're waiting for instructions for every step. So you need to have drive, your determination, your resilience, and also importantly, leadership. You need, if you're put into a position to lead a team, you need to motivate others to work together, right? So collaboration, you need to motivate others to work together to achieve your objective. And lastly, at the core of it is sustainability. We need to think about, we need to understand how do we consume materials, how do we use materials to satisfy our needs and also ensure that these resources are available in the future. So having talked about Career Navigator, if I would strongly suggest that you have a look at this. So I'm not sure if you can click, I've actually embedded link, you can click on this area or this area here. It should bring you to the Career Navigator. Otherwise, I will drop the link in the chat box for you to have a look. I strongly suggest you explore this. It's really helpful for you to plan your career. And even if you are already in a career and you're in a crossroad, you can use this to gain some insight, to get some guidance. Okay, now talking about guidance, this is where I have collated 5 career guides from various sources. So ACCA has done a lot of research on career development, and I found a few that I think are really, really useful for Gen Z who are about to join the workforce. So the first one I want to talk about is the importance of the early years. I'll invite you to look at the picture. This picture that accompanies the slide. Now, most people would be amazed at the structure and say, wow, this is majestic, it looks amazing, right? Few would think about the foundation where it's built on. And yes, that's what your early years is about, is building a strong foundation for your career, which could span 40 to 50 years. Your career could be as long as 50 years. So spending that 10% of your entire career, which is about 3 to 5 years, building a strong foundation would then help you spearhead your career thereafter. Now, what do I mean by that? The first few years is where you will pick up skills that forms your core expertise, whether it's in financial accounting, financial reporting, financial management, corporate finance, audit or taxation or internal controls, whichever is your passion, right? The first 5 years is where you do the hard yards, the hard work, the hard learning. Why is it so hard? Why is it so hard? You may ask me, Aaron, why is it so hard? Now, because if you are an undergraduate, right, in the working world, your competency is probably here. And what you're trying to achieve is to become here, right? But the time you have to do that is probably very short, only this much. So if this represents your learning curve, the gradient is steep. So you will have a very steep learning curve, and that's what makes it hard, and you need to put in the effort. That's why we call it the hard yards. Do the hard yards and do it early, because when you're young, you have a lot more time to rebound, even if you make mistakes. So you can take calculated risk in the early part of your careers. And if there's anything that you take away from this slide, is that you, yes, you who are listening in, are ultimately accountable for your career. A mentor, a coach, even your tutor can only help you so much. They can only give you so much guidance, but ultimately it is you who have to do the hard yards yourself to build your career. Now, next is your commercial awareness. I would suggest you train your commercial awareness. And that means that's because everyone in business, okay, you probably think everyone is business to make money. Aaron, what are you talking about? Oh, yes, make money is, of course, but everyone in business is in business to solve problems, to solve some form of problems. And you turn that problems into a form of commerce, into a business. And therefore, if you train your mind early, right, in an early age, you train your mind to spot opportunities, to spot business opportunities, and say, hey, how can I turn this into a business opportunity? It will help you, even though you are not running your own business. Now, don't think that just because I work in an organization, I am not running a business. No, your ideas can change the process. Ideas can create a new product. You can contribute in many ways. So just for example, a picture like this, right? If you look at this picture, what sort of business opportunity or what sort of commerce opportunity can you get out of it? Can you do with this? This is a festival, right? This is a festival. So perhaps you may think about, they use a lot of paint or dye. So perhaps they need dye. So you supplying dye, and then perhaps you think this paint should be non-harmful, should be safe for people, for skin, for the environment. So that's environment or human-friendly paint. And then you think about the logistics, arranging the festival, the logistics, sending the paint to the festival. And you may promote this as a holiday destination, right? So train your commercial awareness, spot opportunities, plan ahead. You can't have this just the day before, right? So you have to plan ahead. And planning ahead also helps future-proofing yourself. And by that, by future-proofing it, I also want to connect to the point of professional self-awareness. And that is to know yourself. Future-proofing, by future-proofing, you need to look at what's required in the environment. And professional self-awareness helps you to really know yourself, identify gaps, identify your gaps, and then seek help to close it. Right? Next, I want to talk about is no one can solve all problems alone. So remember, it's a team game. Collaboration and project work is getting more important. Okay, I probably jumped the first point. And it's important because business needs are fast changing. Like what I showed you earlier, the drivers of change, they're so dynamic and they will introduce complex challenges. And these challenges would not only affect finance. Now, don't kid ourselves, right? Technology is not going to impact finance function alone. It is going to impact logistics, production, marketing, all functions in an organization. So all functions will have to work together. By working together, what you need to do is to bring your competencies to the team. What you're good at, what you're really good at, you bring to the team and contribute to the whole solution. Another thing is by working in a team, especially if you're able to find multidisciplinary work opportunities, right? There's people of several specialties or several expertise work together. It gives you new experience. And this is probably where you will learn about natural capital management. You may learn about marketing or public relations. You get to learn from others. So that's a good point about working in a team. Now, also for your own career development, you want to seek mentors or sponsors. Now, who are mentors? Mentors are someone who can give you guidance. They could come from a different generation, perhaps older, and what they do is they help you fill in the blanks to things, to tasks that you're about to do, to the work that you are assigned and you don't know how to do it, or you do not know what is a good outcome, right? So find mentors to help you close the gaps. They can also share knowledge and wisdom from the years of experience with you. And the difference between a mentor and a sponsor is a sponsor is someone who will support and guide your career development. And this is also a person who may be supporting you financially, someone who will approve your training budget. So mentors and sponsors, they could be the same individual, but they may not be, right? Can also be two different individuals in the organization. And the last point I want to talk about is your personal effectiveness. Now, with a lot of changes going through, it can get daunting, overwhelming. So start learning to organize what's urgent, what's important, right? And arranging what's urgent and versus important helps you prioritize and therefore manage your time effectively. You can use technology to do this, to help you with this. Simple example is like using the calendar app. How many of you use the calendar app? The calendar app can be really powerful because that helps you to note down what you need to do, how much time you will spend on it, who will be involved. It can also send alerts and reminders. So this technology or apps exists in your smartphone. So you already have it. Therefore, the takeaway from this slide would be to maximize the quantity and the quality of your work output with resources that you already have. You do not always have to find new resources, but make use of what you already have. Right? I think that's all from the sharing that I have today, and I'll be happy to take questions and I'll do my best to answer them. Okay, so I saw one question came in from James Low. Do you segregate your 8-hour work time into hourly basis? Yes, the calendar app helps me do that. In fact, I put it into 30-minute segment instead of 1 hour because some tasks it's only 30 minutes. Some tasks may even take less than 30 minutes, but I just block off. The benefits of using the calendar app is it also helps me manage my capacity, right? So if I have 8 hours of work a day and I've already filled my calendar for that day, then I know I either I shift some tasks around, right? I shift some tasks to a later date, or I may have to work longer hours on that day if those are really urgent and important. On the other hand, it also helps with because I collaborate a lot. I actually support across all functions, so it also helps me to identify where there are spaces, what do I call it? Vacant spaces, right? Then I can offer it to people like even like Peter. Like Peter asked me, Aaron, can you do a presentation to Utah on this date on 19 November? So I have to look at my calendar and say, okay, yep, I've got this slot vacant. But sometimes it's not just the task they have to do. Like for example, today's presentation, right? I don't only block this hour. I also have to find space between today to prepare the materials, to research about my audience, and also to do a practice. Of course, I have to do rehearsal before I can talk to you like I did. So I have to, the calendar app helps me to do this. Also, I use the calendar app to mark deadlines. So if there are certain reports that I need to hand in, or there are certain things like budgets that I need to prepare, I put that in my calendar. And so at a glance, I know what's due, when they are due, and what I need to do. Okay. Right. So let me see. I see a few more questions. Peter, can you help me facilitate?
Okay, sure. I think the next question, I think this is compiled by Joyce through the form. So first question, it says here that please guide the international students online with respect to their specialization. Shall I just continue to read it all and then?
No, I think this one, international students with respect to their specialization. Firstly, I need to know what specialization you're talking about, or your question is in fact, what specialization you want to go into. Is that your question? So whoever asked this question, can you clarify if you're asking which specialization to go into? All right. So I'll take this question later after you clarify.
Yep. So while waiting for probably Joyce will have to check it out. Let's go to the next question. It says here, technology that changed traditional accounting profession.
Okay, there are several of them. The simplest one that we all feel it immediately is cloud technology. So cloud allows accounting to be done remotely. So previously it's not possible. Why? Because the system is what we call on-premise. The system is installed in wherever the office is located. So if you want to access your accounting system, you want to do your entries, you want to do your reports, everything has to be done on-premise because you cannot access it remotely now. Cloud technology changes that by putting this, not only the data on the cloud, the system, the program itself is residing in the cloud. So you can access it over internet, right? Using internet, and therefore not only accounting can be done remotely, the monitoring can be done remotely. So users of accounts now, so accounting has several phases, right? Your recording phase, you record all the transactions, and then the checking phase, and then your reporting phase. So whether it's the CFO or the finance manager or the CEO, they can access this information remotely. Next is data analytics. So data analytics helps to do the reporting, or rather arranging information in meaningful manner much faster. So data analytics also include visualization. That means no longer we are restricted to tables. We can also use charts, and sometimes these charts can be interactive. Now, this is with the use of actually it's also that it's also data analytics, but it's a wide spectrum there, right? So using data analytics, you can do filtering, okay? Filtering, so you can filter into different aspects. You can say, okay, I look at sales in general, everything one lump sum, but I also want to look at sales in Perak. Okay, I can drill down and look at sales in Perak. I want to look at product X in Perak, product X. Who are the customers for product X in Perak? I can see, and then I can further drill down. Now, it sounds simple, but this technology will enable actually fairly recently. Also, with the use of machine learning in some systems, the machine over some time, by observing what users do with data, can also suggest, right? So it can also suggest the reports. So by looking at, oh, this is the data coming, oh, this is the report that you want, they can also suggest. It's called intelligent analytics. This is already in the market. Some companies, some organizations are using it. A while back, Microsoft also provides this to the Office 365 community. But recently, I noticed this is, I don't know whether it's my subscription, I noticed it's no longer available. So previously it's called Insights. You just press that button. It will also show you some suggested analysis. Okay, so I've talked about cloud, data analytics, machine learning. The other one has been a hype several years ago and is still taking time, is robotics, robotics process automation. So what it does is data entry that's repetitive can be done fairly quickly using scanners and machine learning. Okay, so you do not need a clerk there to type in documents anymore. Just take a picture with your phone or industrial grade scanners. You can just scan that and it will do all the data entry automatically. That's what robotics process automation is about. So all this technology works in tandem with each other. Now, having said that, right, you probably wonder, okay, where do all these data transactions reside in? So again, another technology is data lakes or data centers. Where do you store them? Even in the cloud, how do you store this data? So data storage is one. And the other technology impacting is cyber security. You also want to keep all these data safe. So you see, there is no one single technology that's changing traditional accounting. It's a lot of technology working in tandem with each other, right? Okay, Peter, I saw the next question. Why is law important? I wonder what's the context to this question, because simple answer is the law guides what we can do, what we cannot do. It also guides us to perform something in a fairly consistent manner. Now, for example, a law in Malaysia that's relevant to accountants is Income Tax Act. So Income Tax Act would give us a consistent guidelines on how do we pay tax, how do we calculate our tax, when do we pay tax, what happens if we don't pay tax, what kind of punishment. So it introduced structure to society, right? The other law is Companies Act. So Companies Act would talk about the responsibility of directors, their fiduciary duties. It also talks about formation of companies, how general meetings should be held, financial reporting for the company, shareholders' rights. So Yeah, is to introduce structure. So if your question is why is law important, coming from context, why should I study law? That's because if you're an accountant, you will be part of the process. You need to do, sorry, you need to know why you need to do something. Okay. Any tips or suggestions for students who are currently pursuing bachelor degree? Let's attempt to pursue in the future. Right. So question 4, if you're currently pursuing a bachelor degree course, of course, I would think to do your best to learn. Now, I'm not going to say pass your exam because that is just like part of the process. I would say do your best to learn what's in the syllabus. The difference between learning and passing an exam is the learning, you truly acquire the skills, the capabilities. Now, if I were to talk about financial reporting, right, you truly understand why some expenditure can be capitalized as assets, why these assets are then accounted for as PPE, why they cannot be inventory, or why this is an intangible asset, or why this expenditure cannot be capitalized as intangible asset and has to be expensed off. So acquiring that knowledge would build your core expertise. And advice for students to attempt or to pursue ACCA in future. First advice, don't underestimate ACCA exams, right? It is designed to mimic the real world, especially at the strategic professional level. So it is designed to mimic what a professional accountant goes through in the actual work environment. So say as the strategic business leader paper, it is to mimic the role of professional accountants facing the board of directors, facing questions that the board of directors will ask, facing tasks where you need to advise the CEO, you need to advise the board of directors, you need to face investors. It mimics situation where the professional accountants will have to analyze a situation, recommend options, and make decisions. So because it mimics the real world, right? It can be really tough. It can be really tough. And the syllabus is broad because it tries to cover a lot of things, and it's also deep. Right? So it's broad and it's deep. So you need to allocate time to study. So my advice is don't underestimate it. Allocate time to study. Next thing is really to put in effort. Now, if you're not the discipline type, then I would strongly suggest go for classes. Many students ask me, can I study part-time? Can I study on my own? Technically, well, yes, you can do that, but if you're not a very disciplined type, going for classes helps you, right? Because it introduces discipline, introduces structure, and the tutor is someone who is experienced with the topic. So the tutor will be able to guide you in a more structured manner. And there are also a lot of learning resources, which I'm sure Peter will have shared during his Accelerate briefing. Otherwise, get in touch with Peter. There's a lot of learning resources on ACCA's website that you can either read or watch short videos to help you prepare for exams. Talking about exams, do attempt those mock exams on the practice platform. Again, if you don't know what practice platform, please get in touch with Peter. He'll be glad to help you. Peter, what's next?
Yep, I think the subsequent to this question will be asking you on the interview tips.
Okay.
Yep.
Interview tips. Oh, that's a lot to cover. Okay, first tip. There are a lot of interview tips on ACCA careers, right? So I won't be able to cover everything. So things that I missed out, do look it up on ACCA careers website. There's a lot of tips on the day of the interview, before the interviews, preparing for the interviews, and the questions that could come. So that's tip one. Tip number two at interviews, or rather it's actually part of tip number one earlier. Anyway, tip number two is to prepare for the interview. Now, say you are going to for an interview in organization X. You need to find out about organization X, right? Because now interview is actually a process of get to know each other. The interviewer wants to know you. You also want to know the organization. So you have to put on the mindset that I will be working in this organization. That's the whole point of going for interview, right? You want to work in that organization. So if you want to work in that organization, you want to be a part of the organization, then you need to know the organization. Well, even if not in depth, at least what is public knowledge you should know. So look up the website. I'm sure they will have a website. Look at the website. Well, what does it say about the organization? What's the heritage? Who's in charge? You can find out what do they do, right? Because sometimes finding out what they do can also help you determine if this is where I want to work, if this aligns with your values, with your purpose, right? Sometimes people join organization and then they leave within a few months to say, hey, this place is not for me. I mean, hello, didn't you do any research before you join? So unless the culture within, okay, culture is quite hard to research. So unless the culture within is really toxic, it's really difficult. But if you just say that, oh, this is not the place that I want to be, not the work I want to do, well, then the onus is really on you to do research about the organization, the things they do, the services they provide, right? And you can also do Google research, just type the name of organization, see what pops up. Have they been in the news recently? Have they been in positive news or negative news? Okay, so that's learning about organization. And then third tip is to be yourself. Right? So don't have to pretend to be anybody else, of course. Just be yourself because they're hiring you. So speak as you would, of course, in a polite manner, and answer questions truthfully. Now, if you need time to think, sometimes you're given a really difficult question. If you need time to think, it is okay, right? It's really okay to tell the interviewer, can you give me a moment to think this through before answering? It's perfectly fine. Now, I've been an interviewer in my past employment. I've been an interviewer, and I can tell you it's perfectly fine to take a pause, say you need to think this through. And sometimes interviewers will give you a curveball. They will give you a question that you do not expect. The intention is really to see how you react to such situation. Okay, I recap. By giving you a curveball, it's really to see how you react. You will react in such situation. Now, because when you join the team, you represent the organization, and highly likely you will face this situation. Okay, so if a client throws you a curveball, how will you react? It's the same way. I can tell you, the way you react in the interview will probably be the same way you react with the client. So they want to see what kind of person you are, how you will react to such situation, right? So this is just a few tips. There's a lot more, and I would strongly suggest you look at the ACCA careers website for more guidance.
Yep, Aaron. Okay. I think for the interest of time, we actually still have quite a number of questions here. If not, then perhaps we can get Joyce to compile, and then we'll get back to the respective whoever asked the questions earlier. Yeah. Now the next questions, I think this will be very good question. It says here that Mr. Aaron, I do agree that the early years is really important to lay the foundations to our future career. But will it still apply to those who change their field entirely later in their life, perhaps in their mid-30s?
So early years, early years refers to really the early years of your career. And that's where you will build your competencies. But if your question is, if I were to change my field, do I then start at square one? Answer is probably not. You will not end up in square one, even if you change your career entirely. Maybe you will be a few squares ahead, because a lot of skills that we acquire can be used in different fields, right? Things like our soft skills, things like our communication skills, how we interact with people, our networking skills, and how we analyze situation, our analytic skills. This can be applied in different fields. So even if you leave, say, you start off in audit, you leave audit entirely and go to say investment, right? So it's totally different. You won't be doing any auditing work, you won't be doing any financial reporting work, you won't be but what you will do is probably you will still look at financial statements, you will still analyze financial statements, you will probably still ask your investee or your clients about their internal controls. You will still talk to senior leadership of the organization, so your communication skills will still be applied. Therefore, I think you won't start at square one and go back to your early years. But do you need to learn new skills? Yes. Then yes. Continue. We need to continually learn. I've met a lot of people, even those in their 50s, accountants in their 50s, they still continue to learn. In fact, one story I want to share. I actually attended a data analytics course, right? And my classmate, his age is close to 60 years old. So what he says is he needs to keep up. He needs to keep up, otherwise he wouldn't know. Now, why he learns data analytics and a bit of programming is not to do all the work himself. He said, I have staff to do that, but I need to know what they're talking about. So even if you change into a different role, or if you don't change your role, we also need to continue pick up skills. Okay, next, Peter.
Just give you a moment, yeah. Just hold on.
Okay.
The next questions will be okay, here it says that you mentioned about teamwork just now. May I know how would you solve a conflict in your team?
Conflict in your team. Okay, that's a really tough one. That's a really tough one. By conflict, do you mean two people in your team or more don't like each other, or you don't like the other person? Okay, so it can be quite different when you're dealing it for your own, right, personal, and dealing it with for other people. But anyway, the first suggestion for resolving conflict is to find out what caused the conflict. So communication, and perhaps more important is how to communicate, right? There are several ways to do it. One is Now, I suppose when you ask me this question, that means it's reached the stage that you really need to solve it. You cannot leave the two people to sort it out themselves, right? So one thing I would suggest is perhaps you talk to them individually and find out what is the issue, right? And you really don't need to be the one offering the solution. Just find out the issue, what caused the conflict, why do they lock heads with each other, all right? Then you can also find out what do they want to do. Do they want to resolve the conflict? Now, because if they do not want to resolve the conflict, no matter what you do, the conflict will be there, right? But if they want to resolve the conflict, and assuming they do, how do they want to resolve it? Now, by understanding the both parties, then you can see if there's a common point. So this may take a few interactions. It won't happen immediately, and then you can host a discussion in a neutral space. Now, it's important to do this in a neutral space, a neutral environment, in a safe environment. That means it's not public. You don't want this to escalate into a argument and then you cannot control. So in a safe environment, a room maybe, and then you can moderate the discussion for the two persons who are in conflict. Right? Hopefully that helps.
All right. Now I can see that we have 3 more minutes to go. Let me just ask Joyce. Joyce, shall we take this one final series of questions from James? Is that okay? I think we can just finish it all. All right.
Sure.
Now, all right. Aaron, it's questions by James. It says here that he has been working for 5 years, but do not have any experience in accounting or audit. Now he is considering to pursue ACCA, so asking your advice. And here it says that his peers actually recommended him not to switch to job audit field because ACCA is hard to pass. But then the accountant said that he got friend that 9 years also cannot pass ACCA. But again, in ACCA, in order for you to become an ACCA member, they need 3 years working experience. And he's currently working as a secretary to COO. Yep. So what would your advice?
So I think there's a few parts to this question. I think the first part is, should I change career? Second part is pursuing ACCA, and third part is getting the experience. So I address part one, which is, should I change career? I think career is really a personal matter, and you got to ask yourself, why do you want to pursue a career in accounting? Okay, now I'm not saying that you shouldn't change your career. It's just, why accounting? What is it that you like about accounting, or what opportunity that you see in accounting? All right, now once you are clear with yourself about that and think, yes, accounting is the future for me, part 2, part 3 actually is no longer an issue. I have come across this, and this is before I joined ACCA. All right, before I joined ACCA, I was working as an auditor, and I have had one client in her 40s, remember correct, in her 40s, who only then start pursuing ACCA. Why? Simply because she's fed up with the ceiling. So without a professional qualification, and she wouldn't reveal what's her highest qualification anyway, she's very capable, but couldn't progress up the career ladder. And so one day, something must have triggered, and she just felt fed up of not getting a promotion, cannot progress in the career. So she started studying for ACCA on a part-time basis, going for night classes. Obviously, everyone else is half her age. Okay, so it wasn't easy, but her determination paid through. Right, so she completed ACCA, and again, this all happens before I even joined ACCA. Then she left the company. Obviously, you don't give me opportunity, so she left the company and pursue another career, still in accountancy with another organization, but now she's an ACCA member. So if you're determined to pursue a career in accounting, then studying for ACCA, there are a lot of options. I'm not going to kid you, it is not easy to pass. I went through that journey. So you need to dedicate time and effort to do it. It is possible. It can be done on a part-time basis. I actually did ACCA on a part-time basis while I was working full-time as an auditor, and many of my peers actually gone through this route of part-time studies. But like I said earlier, going for classes helps us because we are so busy with work. There's not enough time for us to plan for our studies. So going for classes, some planning is already done. We follow the program. Of course, we also took time to do revision and mock exams and prepare for the exams, right? Then in terms of work experience, I'm not sure exactly what you do as a secretary. You may have to analyze and look at the practical experience requirement, PER requirements for ACCA. I think there are 14 objectives there. You can see whether the task that you perform meets any of the objectives, and then identify if there's a professional accountant in your current organization. If there is one, then ask the professional accountant if he can be your performance practical experience supervisor, PES, to sign off some of the objectives that you have that's observable, that can be observed, that you can demonstrate this. Now, otherwise, like I said, there are 14 objectives. So even while pursuing ACCA, you can also look at what are the tasks that you can perform that will allow you to achieve some of these objectives. All right.
Yep. I think this leads to the last, let's take this last question. Is the salary of auditor and accountant being rising or stagnant in these few years?
Okay, salary for auditors and accountants is really it's really wide. Also depends on location, depends on size of firm. Now, I can only tell you what I've come across. So looking at salaries offered by Big Four at the entry level, seems like it has increased, right? And it has increased a lot since the time I was an entry level in one of the Big Four. In terms of accountant, I think the larger companies and the MNCs, they have increased. I'm really not sure about SME, so I can't say about that. However, there's a lot of free resources that you can check. That all you have to do is just provide your email address. Okay, so you can check resources like Hayes, Michael Page, Robert Walters. They produce annual salary guides that will show you a range of salary for the roles, right? Of course, it's blended, so they just show Malaysia. They don't show you Penang or Kuala Lumpur or JB. If you need those insights, you have to purchase. But anyway, I think it's a good guide to look at to give you a sense of what's the salary range that you can expect.
Yep.
Okay.
I think that's about it, Aaron. I think we are already overrun 5 minutes. So should have any questions that has been unanswered. Is that okay? That I'm not so sure whether you would like to leave your email address for them to contact you directly or how?
I suggest you connect with me on LinkedIn. If you have further questions on careers, connect with me on LinkedIn. Because some of the, if I can direct you to some resources that's readily available, I can do that. Or otherwise, I can reply to your LinkedIn message.
Okay, that's about it. So I will share your LinkedIn link here. And yeah, okay. So with that, I think we come to the end. Let me just pass it back to Joyce. Over to you, Joyce.
All right. Okay, it looks like we've covered all our questions here. So thank you so much, Mr. Alan, and also Mr. Peter. And also, it has been a great pleasure having all of you with us today. So we would like to extend our sincere apologies for any inconveniences caused as well. And thank you so much, Mr. Alan, for this insightful webinar. So thank you, everyone, and stay safe. Yeah.
You're welcome. Thanks for inviting us, Joyce. And thanks for having me, everyone. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.